Right away in this episode, we get forensic pics of the tangled jumble of bodies. If you watch procedurals often, this sound is super familiar. Anyway, they're still out on the spot on the ice where the bodies were found by Fiona Shaw's character, Rose. Since there's no forensic technician, they do it all themselves. Danvers is doing that mentor thing with Peter Pryor, a name I find hard to say out loud without laughing. Anybody else? Again, we see how the writer was influenced by the Dyatlov Pass phenomenon. Look that shit up, it's freaky. We see an all-important symbol on one of the corpses' foreheads, and this symbol should be recognized by anyone watching previous seasons. Yes, Season 4 will absolutely reference Season 1. I'll get into that in another video before the season ends, if you are interested. Off to the side, we see Rose talking with Evangeline, and we can tell they have some sort of history. Rose seems gentle and slightly protective of Evangeline, calling her Missy, and before the jump to opening credits, we get a shock. An inept Officer Wilson snaps off a limb from one of the corpses, and it gives out an unearthly howl. He's alive, folks. Danvers visits a teacher, also a geologist, at a local high school. Well, a local high school, it's the local high school. Someone we learn she had an affair with. In this location, we find out more about Salal Station. It feels like a Nancy Drew game where you have to go around repeatedly talking with people to open up the mystery. Anybody play those games? Bryce, the teacher, former lover, geologist, repeats the narrative we heard in part 1, that the scientists at Salal are reclusive and don't let folks visit except for the delivery guy and a small cleaning crew. The official line on their research is this: they have spent years trying to sequence the DNA of an extinct microorganism that probably could stop cellular decay. I'm getting Smilla Sense of Snow vibes from this info. Not exactly the same plot, but this show's writing certainly is derivative. And that's okay with this genre because it's all just reforming the same sorts of crimes, criminals, stories. Still, something to think about. Back to their convo. We get that ice coring is a process that needs careful, methodical procedures. When something is brought up from the permafrost, it can damage chromosomal material. Did the scientists fuck up and release something from the ice shelf? Again, this feels super familiar, but I like it. Rose and Evangeline's chat reveals a few things. 1. Evangeline found Rose's lover's body, so there's the connection. 2. Rose's lover, Rust Cole's daddy, Travis. 3. People in Ennis see dead people. 4. Evangeline is told that seeing dead people shouldn't be confused with mental illness, like her sister most assuredly is struggling with. 5. Rose says the dead visit for a few reasons. They want to visit you because they miss you, they need to tell you something you need to hear, and lastly, some want to take you with them. Rose tells Evangeline she needs to learn the difference. 6. Rose says the symbol is older than the town and probably older than the ice itself. And Evangeline says she's seen it before, but years ago. Ominous. Note: does anyone else think that Rose feels like Michael Caine's character in Children of Men? Let's continue. Ecclestone has entered the game! Or Eccleston? Is that how you say his name? Anyway, it's Doctor Who. Back at the station, Danvers tells his character Connolly that she has it under control and she doesn't want to hand over the case to Anchorage. She cites official procedure about handling frozen remains. Here we get some backstory on why she's there, and fuck Hank and the other men who work under her. Seriously. Danvers wants to use the hockey rink to store the bodies while they thaw so she can control the temperature and not destroy some of the evidence. At the rink, we meet Kate McKittrick. Evangeline calls her that mine bitch. Kate seems chummy with Hank, whom she calls Henry. She freaking hates Liz Danvers. Danvers screwed her husband, right? Viewers are focusing here on the sweater worn by Leah's 16, not 15-year-old girlfriend. So I'll let you check that out on your own. There's a funny scene with the Beach Boys song overlaid when the bodies are moved to the rink and everyone's in the street watching. It feels like a scene from Deadlock. Anyone seen that show? What we find out in this scene as the bodies are situated in the hockey rink. Okay, here we go. Teeth marks on corpuscles as if they bit off their own hands. Counting bodies that can be identified so far. Evangeline telling Danvers the symbol was tattooed on Annie K's body. Nobody but Peter even wanting to work with Danvers. And Peter using the corpse's open frozen eyes to open their phone. Jump to Kavik owns a bar. Evangeline's sister works there. Annie K's brother Ryan is in there drinking. So Evangeline wants to question him. We keep getting flashes of Kavik's sled dogs. She shows Ryan Clark's picture, but he doesn't recognize him. Chuck Mosley walks up to bitch and complain and interrupt, but Evangeline sees he clearly recognizes Clark's photo. Meanwhile, a fight breaks out inside the bar between mining folk and locals over bad water. Remember the water is bad? Yeah, that's absolutely going to be a huge plot. Is it causing aggression? Hallucinations? What do you think? Danvers and Peter Pryor look at the phone. We see some prints of what looks like a hand with missing fingers. This print was found on a shoe. Danvers mentors Peter and pushes him to, quote unquote, ask the right questions, a la Rust Cohle, Season 1. I love the incidental music played over this scene, by the way. The other takeaway from this scene is the footage we see of Molina doing his sandwich video, and in the background, Clark, wearing Annie K's parka, has a sort of fit and turns slowly to say, she's awake. Then the phone dies. All of this we saw in part 1, right? But now they're seeing it. Next, Kavik is tending to the wounds on one of his dogs and talking with Evangeline. Girl can't stay away. Kavik says the water thing started just a week ago, even turning black in some people's homes near the mines. The dog suddenly growls, and Evangeline jokes that one day his dogs are going to eat him. I say this right now, I'm calling it, guys. One of his dogs will attack him because of the water situation, and he will have to shoot it. I don't want to see it, but I'm calling it. Danvers goes to question the cleaning crew, and Peter goes to interview supply delivery guy. We get these two sessions intercut. What do we find out? We find out a few things here. I'm going to list them. 1. Remember lady from Crab Plant who helped Blair, the domestic abuse woman with missing fingers? She's on the cleaning crew. She calls the symbol a cult or devil sign. 2. Annie K was a midwife. 3. As cleaning woman is being questioned, Blair walks by and it seems that maybe she has seen this symbol Danvers is showing around, but she doesn't admit it. 4. Bill Wallace, supply delivery guy, says Clark was especially weird the last few times he saw him, talking to himself and walking around naked. 5. Other cleaning crew woman says Dr. Lund once screamed at her for moving one of his notebooks. 6. Clark locked himself in his room and was crying while other scientists just ignored him. We'll find out later what this is about. 7. Bill, supply guy, reiterates that Ennis folks see things, dead people, and says he thought he saw someone the day he discovered the scientists missing. But he doesn't say who. 8. Peter was born in Ennis. 9. Bill reveals Clark had the symbol tattooed on his chest. Now we're getting somewhere. Evangeline heads out to speak with Chuck. Viewers want to talk of nothing else but the awful posters in the background in his room. There's more going on here that we need to pay attention to. But first, Evangeline is jamming out to Spice Girls in the car, but she starts to run off the road. No, viewers, that isn't blood, it's dirty ice and snow. Has no one lived where dirty ice and snow get pushed to the side of a high traffic area? Yeah, that's not blood. Anyway, she drops her phone, reaches to get it while she's driving, pulls up the necklace with a crucifix. She gets a flashback, hardcore, to her mom having a screaming breakdown and pointing ominously, while what looks like a young Evangeline and even younger sister huddle close, terrified. Evangeline is a boss because she just flings that right out the window as she drives on. Damn. We get a close-up of the crucifix on the icy road behind her. Wonder if we'll see this again. Hi, Chuck. You're a liar. What we learn here. Clark bought Chuck's cousin's trailer 7 years ago. A Golden Eagle that Clark paid $10,000 for, in cash. Okay, this is obviously a love nest, right? Chuck's cousin died of bone cancer and he blames the town. Chuck hates brown people. This is what we learn here. Note, anyone else notice people's supplies just piling up in their living spaces? Like cases of beans, especially? Life during polar night in an isolated area. Keeping it real show. Cut to Hank, clearly being catfished by his mail-order soon-to-be bride. He sees that a box of files has been taken. Note, my theory? Hank is incompetent, and he did something years ago that he's hiding now because it proves he is incompetent. He will do anything to protect that secret. Peter tells Danvers about the tattoo on Clark's chest. Peter has also followed the money and found a connection between Salal and Tuttle United, Season 1. And here's where we see just how small and interconnected Ennis is. Danvers tells Peter he has to continue to work that night. He counters that he promised his wife Kayla he'd put Darwin, their kid, to bed. Then we see Danvers show up and look like she just walks into the house to take Leah home because she was there hanging with Kayla and her grandmother. While we see Kayla on the phone arguing with Peter about not being home that night to help care for Darwin. Small world. Laundromat Grandma gives Danvers hell as she freaks out over Leah having kakiniit on her chin. I really want to know what Grandma is saying here. Does anyone have a translation, and excuse my pronunciation? Okay, so Evangeline and her sis have a private, serious conversation about sis getting treatment while shopping at the market. Who does that? I have questions about this scene. 1. Is Evangeline new to Ennis? Why doesn't she know about the high prices of foods that must be shipped there? 2. Does Evangeline get a discount at this market thanks to her job? 3. Or is she saying that her sister could work there and get good job benefits? What does that even mean? Rather than help Danvers put up Christmas decorations, Leah sneaks out to meet up with her 16 not 15-year-old girlfriend in an empty store for sexy times. Good work, art design and props crew here on her bedroom decor. Rummaging through boxes that clearly haven't seen the light of day for a few years, Danvers finds the polar bear stuffy that we saw in the first episode. Flashback to kid holding a hand over one eye and Twist and Shout playing in the background. The little boy says, "I'm the one eye," and holds the polar bear toy so they can both kiss it. Did she have a kid with Jake? Is Jake Leah's dad? Bet that box goes back into the closet for a few more years. Peter gets a slap from his daddy, and from a later conversation with Leah, this may not be the first time. Hank says blood is blood, and cautions Peter about being true to Danvers. Unsettled by the flashback, Danvers heads out to get railed by Doctor Who, Connolly. Trope alert! Troubled detective seeks aggressive sex release to distract from case. Hello! We learn that Connolly and Danvers have been hitting it for 19 years off and on. She leaves pissed that he keeps pushing about the case transferring to Anchorage, implying she can't handle it. Tracing Clark's credit card activity, Danvers and Peter find the tattoo place and learn that Clark was crying when he got the tattoo. The dates check out that this occurs after Annie K's murder. And get this, Annie had a matching tattoo. But hey, show, we knew this because Evangeline told us already. And Danvers knew this too because Evangeline told her already. And we all guessed that Clark and Annie were secretly an item. But okay. Evangeline arrives home to find Danvers in her house. There's a cute little intimacy thing where Danvers puts Evangeline's groceries away. Weird. Danvers shows that Clark got a tattoo like Annie's. And yes, it's Annie's tongue they found. And there's some quote-unquote unusual cellular damage to the tongue. Some takeaways here. Evangeline starts to talk about the big beef they have, referring to something called the Wheeler thing. She says, "We did exactly what we needed to do." Danvers shuts it down, doesn't want to discuss it. Okay, this right here is the big thing in the past. And I think Hank is involved. I'm calling it now. Cut to Leah all happy postcoital and talking with Peter at the rink as he watches over the corpsicles. She reveals that Danvers and her dad used to dance to Casey and the Sunshine Band. Okay, is her dad named Jake? Is Danvers responsible for Jake and the little boy's death? Maybe negligent in some way? Is the little boy Leah's half-brother? Questions we need answers for. Oh, and we also learn that Hank used to play guitar. Will this be important, or is it just character sketching? Something went down when the mom left. Evangeline had told Kavik she wasn't coming over that night for sex, but she shows up as he's in the bath, having had a wank. Apparently, Kavik is a one-and-done for the night kind of guy. He makes her pancakes, and as they're talking about Annie's secret affair with Clark, she repeats Danvers' Rust ask the right question thing. She realizes the right question is how were they able to conduct a secret relationship? The trailer, remember? She runs out and doesn't eat the pancakes. Can I have them? Damn. We see her finding the Golden Eagle trailer intercut with Danvers going through Clark's papers. Dude was losing it. Lots of scribbling about eyes, she's awake, oh God, never sleep, etc. All written on information about what they find while they're ice coring. She gets a call from Evangeline, who is sharing her info about the trailer before she goes inside. That's gracious. They enter. It's creepy. Animal bones, which Evangeline identifies as seal and caribou, lots of knitted, tied dolls and things hanging, pictures, plants, herbs, Annie K's phone, the symbol on the ceiling above the bed, a little polar bear stuffed animal. Is the paraphernalia we see here meant to be protection against something? Was Clark trying to bring Annie back from the dead, as Redditors suspect? Why the life-size doll on the bed and what looks like could be a baby? I mean, viewers suspect they had a baby that died, which fits into why the scientists might have wanted Annie K dead. And I think they're involved in her death, or somehow implicit. Right as this scene ends, with Peter calling that there's a problem, we hear someone hyperventilating or panting and screaming. Then a ram's head on a barrel somewhere and a dead bird that looks like a crow. It's chilling. They get to the rink and Peter shows them that the ice has melted somewhat on the bodies, and Clark appears to be missing. Evangeline is certain that he's out there, alive. And I like her acting generally, but the line read there sucks. Why end the episode on that? However, I do love the fast camera pullback to the three of them standing there by the corpse pile. Alright, that's it for part 2. What are your theories? What are you enjoying the most from this season of True Detective? Like, subscribe, ring my bell, and let's figure this out together.